Hi everyone, this is Paul here from the Magdalene Centre. Today I'm doing the Science and Seasons report for the week commencing 27th of December, and this will involve looking at the moon's transits through the signs and positions and relationships between certain planets at this point in time, and explaining what the themes for this week will be so that we understand what it all means and how we can potentially make use of this energy. Now, before I go into that in detail, I just want to explain that astrology doesn't control our lives. It's not a strings pulling puppets here. It's just it's a bit like a weather report. If you understand what energy is doing and how it's moving and the themes that it outlines through the relationships between the planets, we can then make a more conscious choice as to how we engage with things rather than being unconscious and potentially reacting to the energies that we're under the influence of. So it's not something that controls us, but it does have an influence, and if we understand what that influence is, we can more consciously engage with it so that we're not reacting blindly to something that we're not aware of. So we start off with the moon's transit. So we start off with the moon in Aries. So during this point we may feel that need for taking action, for feeling that motivation to pursue a goal or take the necessary actions to initiate something. Then on Thursday to the 28th of December, the moon moves into Taurus, and this is a time of slowing down, focusing on embodiment rather than action. And it may be a time where we feel like we need to spend a bit more time in nature, because nature is naturally slow moving, it's grounding, and if we spend time in nature, it calms us down and makes it easier for us to align with the flow around us. Then on the 30th, which is the Saturday, the moon will move into Gemini, and this will be a time of focusing on communication, of expressing ideas, of researching information for whatever goals we choose to be following at this point, and communicating our ideas with one another and potentially working on our communication so there's a more smooth transfer of ideas between each other. And then on New Year's Day, the moon will move into her home sign of Cancer, and this is a time where it's focusing on emotional nourishment, so going inwards, spending time with ourselves, taking things slowly and relaxing, connecting with our emotions, and really nourishing our emotional landscape through expressing our emotions, feeling them, connecting them, and getting rooted within ourselves rather than being pulled outwards. And on this 2nd of January itself, we'll have the full moon in Cancer. So this will be related to the new moon in Cancer last year. It would have been around about the tail end of June time. So it's a time of looking at what goals or intentions do we set around that time, and how have they finally manifested as the end result now. But it's also about the balance between Cancer and Capricorn. The two are complementary energies, and not, yes, they're opposite one another, but the two are needed to balance each other out. Cancer prevents the objectivity of Capricorn from losing touch with our roots. So being in touch with Cancer allows us to stay true to who we are, stay connected to our inner nature, and express that through Capricorn. Whilst Capricorn can prevent the navel gazing of Cancer, it's a time of using that objectivity to avoid getting swamped by our emotions and unable to see things clearly. So it's a time of balancing our inner and outer natures, the inner private nature and the outer public nature. Now, the other key thing happening on the same day as it happens is Uranus is turning direct in Aries, having been retrograde since July. And this is a time where whatever deeper understanding we've achieved of ourselves, of understanding the deep levels of our identity, these need to be incorporated into who we are. So Uranus is It can be chaos and change, but Uranus is the awakener. It's about, I mean, as with all the planets, it all starts within us. Nothing is truly external to us, but external events mirror our internal nature. So sometimes, if we're not in touch with who we are, then Uranus will come across as chaotic and shocking in nature and disruptive. These disruptions are just there to try and get our attention. It's like an alarm clock waking us up. It can be a shock to the system if you've been fast asleep and the alarm suddenly goes off. But it's just to wake us up to a different side of us, the deeper parts of our self-identity and the deeper spark of who we are. So Uranus in Aries has all been about awakening us to the fact that if we want transformation to take place, if we want any kind of humanitarian or utopian vision to manifest, then we have to transform ourselves first to become the agents of change for that, and then align our actions with that humanitarian aim. But if we don't do this, then the humanitarian vision that we may hold is never going to manifest, because for anything to manifest, we have to take action. Aries. So Uranus in Aries has been all about this need to take action, to align our actions with the deeper spark of the I am, of I am consciousness, and awakening to this side of us, rather than going around blind, waiting for other people to do the work of manifesting vision and just going along with the crowd. It's been a time where we need to have awakened to who we really are, to understand the deeper levels of our identity, and to allow these changes to manifest in our lives externally rather than resisting change. So it's also been about becoming comfortable with change and accepting that our identity itself is malleable. We can change it as long as that change is aligning with who we really are, rather than aligning with what people are telling us we should be. Now, some of the themes taking place as well, we have Mars in Scorpio is moving close to a conjunction with Jupiter in Scorpio, and they're both in a trine aspect to Neptune and a sextile to Pluto. Now, Mars is obviously symbolises our desires and our actions, and in Scorpio we need to look at purifying these actions. So it polarises the desire function and highlights the positive devotion. Spiritual devotion is another manifestation of Mars. So devotion, it's moving or transforming desires into a one-pointed devotion. But first we have to it has to be polarized to see which desires are just our egoic impulses and which are the true desires of the soul, and then purge the egoic desires, so that we go through the Phoenix transformation of letting go of all personal desire that's based in selfishness and egoic need, and moving to the soul desires, which is ideally moving back towards union with the higher power again. Now, with this moving towards Jupiter, this is going to be very expansive energy, so the desire function may be expanded massively. And now, with this being in Scorpio, these may be unconscious desires, but if we make the effort of making them conscious, we can then, this expansive energy of Jupiter may well highlight the desires more clearly, but again, we have to choose to embrace the process. Now, the trine aspect to Neptune can bring in things like universal love and universal consciousness to help us with this process of shifting away from egoic desires, because Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. It's about surrender. It's about letting go of the egoic need for control altogether, and recognizing we're part of everything. And it's not just a mental recognition of this, it's an emotional nature. It's that feeling of universal consciousness, that compassion, universal love. And if we use these energies to transform our desires, we can use the power of surrender, of universal love, and shine that onto our desires, onto our deeper unconscious nature, and allow that light to illuminate the unconscious mind, to highlight where the shadow desires are, and so we can then release them, not through judgment but through acceptance and forgiving ourselves if we've engaged in any destructive behaviour based on these unconscious desires. And with the sextile to Pluto, this is also, Pluto is obviously the ruler of Scorpio, so the sextile to Pluto gives us the opportunity to utilise the transformative nature of Scorpio even more powerfully by exploring our shadow side in terms of our desires and our expansive intentions, and letting go of anything that's going to be destructive or is going to pull us away from our higher self and into the lower self, which is subject or reactive to our external conditions. If we can go in the opposite direction, so go inwards and take charge of our internal responses so that external events no longer affect us, because we're choosing how we react to things, or we're choosing to respond rather than react, then we achieve true power where the world around us doesn't control us, or doesn't influence our decisions. We know who we are, and we know what we really want, and we're prepared to do something even if it's not something that other people understand. So this is a time where the most important thing is that we remain true to who we are. We're not trying to please everyone around us. You say, we'll take that inward journey to know who we are, and then take actions aligned with that. So I hope this useful guide for you. May this week bring you much growth, may bring you many blessings. Take care.